Historical eras rarely turn over quietly. They grind against each other. For a brief window, you will find an outgoing reality and an incoming future occupying the exact same geographical and cultural space. To observe this friction clearly, we can isolate the United Kingdom during a single dense 30-day period, April 1966. The nation was caught between the rigid austerity of the post-war years and a rapidly accelerating Technicolor youth culture. This specific month functions as a historical microcosm. By isolating it, we see a country held in strict suspension between two conflicting worlds. To measure this, we will track four concurrent variables: the foundational political climate, extreme environmental anomalies, international media narratives, and domestic crime. We are pulling an archaeological core sample of the month, separating events into distinct, overlapping strata. Decadal summaries blur these contradictions into neat, false narratives. Examining a single month reveals the actual texture of historical change. The baseline for this transition was set immediately. On the 1st of April, the country was still processing the results from the polling stations. Harold Wilson led the Labour Party to a massive general election victory. He secured a decisive 96-seat majority in the House of Commons. This gave Wilson a clear mandate to enact sweeping social reforms, promising a modernized, forward-looking British state. Yet, 24 hours later, the environment issued a sharp correction to that political momentum. A freak spring blizzard descended on Bradford and the broader north of England. 16 inches of snow accumulated rapidly, trapping countless motorists on the roads. The storm forced the immediate cancellation of dozens of football matches, bringing local civic life to a standstill. The political establishment was charging toward modernization, while the physical environment literally froze the country in place. It served as a stark reminder that the modern British state remained heavily subjected to deep, uncontrollable forces. Down in the capital, however, that frost was completely absent. 2 weeks later, on April 15th, the burgeoning cultural shift acquired an official title. Time magazine published a dedicated issue explicitly labeling the capital London the Swinging City. This editorial decision packaged a concentrated, localized youth movement and exported it globally as a definitive cultural phenomenon. To understand the reality behind the headline, we must look at the physical epicenters driving this aesthetic, primarily Carnaby Street. Independent boutiques like Lord John capitalized on a highly concentrated, chaotic influx of disposable income from a younger demographic. Female fashion became highly politicized, led by Mary Quant's popularization of the miniskirt as an outright rejection of traditional modesty. The youth market demanded a rapid cycle of bold, readily accessible garments. These sharply cut hemlines and vibrant floral patterns stood in severe visual opposition to the heavy, utilitarian fabrics worn by their parents during the post-war rationing years. This specific aesthetic quickly integrated into the domestic film industry. April saw the release of Morgan, A Suitable Case for Treatment, a film starring David Warner that embraced the surrealist, anti-establishment attitude of the youth. Sweeting London functioned in two distinct states simultaneously. It was a tangible commercial reality happening on the pavement of Carnaby Street, and a highly curated product sold to the rest of the world. This collision of old and new forces extended directly into the national broadcast infrastructure. On April 21st, television cameras recorded the state opening of Parliament. For the first time, the highly ritualized ancient traditions of the British government's inner sanctum were transmitted live into civilian living rooms. Concurrently, the BBC debuted Camberwick Green, utilizing gentle stop-motion animation to construct an idyllic, simplified version of rural English life for children. Yet, the most severe technological friction was occurring in the recording studios. On April 6th, behind the closed doors of EMI Studios at Abbey Road, the Beatles began sessions for their album Revolver. The very first track they attempted was Tomorrow Never Knows, an exercise in dismantling the conventions of commercial music. By heavily utilizing saturated tape loops and reverse recordings, they produced an aggressive, disorienting sound profile that fractured standard pop structures. But while the culture industries projected optimism and experimentation, the domestic reality was violently grounded by the justice system. On April 19th, the trial of Ian Brady and Myra Himbley commenced at Chester Crown Court. The methodical, horrific nature of the Moors murders dominated newspaper headlines, injecting immense psychological distress into the national conscience. The trauma surrounding this trial proved that no amount of Technicolor pop culture could overwrite the deep, complex darkness present within British society. Within 30 days, Britain experienced a sweeping political mandate, crippling weather, a global cultural coronation, sonic dismantling, and severe criminal trauma. By the end of the month, the physical landscape itself reflected a sudden, aggressive acceleration in leisure and transit. Longleat Estate opened the first drive-through safari park outside of Africa, dropping a completely foreign, modern attraction onto the grounds of a traditional English manor. Simultaneously, the first regular hovercraft passenger service was inaugurated across the English Channel. These developments were physical proof of a society optimizing for speed and novel experiences over heritage. Historical transitions are never clean. They are layered friction points where rigid traditions are forcibly intersected by rapid, often jarring innovation. April 1966 serves as the exact intersection. It is the specific month the cultural machinery of the 1960s fully activated. This was brought to you by Stalls or Circle. Thank you for listening.